There's a growing confidence with Nyland at the back, who just looked unbeatable on the day. Everything that was thrown at him, deflected at him.
That save at the end was
the entire performance from beginning to end.
Some nights, a goalkeeper does far more than stop shots. He takes over the whole story. That is exactly what Nyland did in Norway's 2-1 win over Brazil, turning one huge moment after another into a personal highlight reel and making sure his performance was impossible to ignore. Take your pick from the saves that shaped the match.
What a sharp reaction. Came to Ryan! Lifted up towards Endrick. Bruno Guimaraes! What a wonderful save by Nyland.
There was the penalty stop, the kind that instantly changes the mood of a stadium. Brazil had not failed to score a World Cup penalty in normal time since 1986, which made that save hit even harder. Then came the dangling leg that kept Vinicius Jr. from grabbing what would have been his 5th goal. Nyland also threw himself into an acrobatic stop that saved Christopher Aja from ending up on the wrong side of one of the strangest own goals the World Cup could have seen. And, on top of that, he still had a sharp block to deny Ryan. 4 major saves, each one louder than the last, each one adding more weight to what was already becoming a standout performance. But somehow, the stop that best summed up Nyland was the one that did not even count in the end. In the 63rd minute, Casemiro lifted a cross toward Ryan, who calmly cushioned it into the path of Bruno Guimaraes. It looked over right there. The move had opened up perfectly. The finish seemed certain, and Norway looked beaten for a split second. Then Nyland exploded off his line. At 6'4", he already fills space in a way few goalkeepers can. But this was something else. He threw himself forward, stretched every limb he had, and made his body seem impossibly wide. Arms out, legs spread, chest square to the ball, he turned himself into a barrier that felt bigger than his frame had any right to be. For that instant, he looked like a star shape thrown across the goalmouth, blocking out everything in front of him. The flag eventually went up for offside, wiping the save off the official record. On paper, it meant nothing. In the moment though, it clearly meant everything to Nyland. He celebrated that stop with even more emotion than the penalty save, like he knew he had just pulled off something he had been carrying in his head for years. For a split second, he did not look like a goalkeeper standing in New Jersey in the middle of a World Cup match.
I've not checked my phone now. It's now I'm going to join the doping control, so that's the boring stuff that I have to do first, and then obviously I'm gonna enjoy this moment. It's been the most important game of my career. It's fantastic to be here, to be able to save and to be able to contribute that we are now in the quarterfinal, which is a huge achievement. So very happy to participate, and then everyone knows who to call when they need someone. So that's I think I showed that today.
He looked like a kid again, back in his bedroom in Volda, staring at the poster on his wall and replaying one save over and over in his mind. Peter Schmeichel had done something strikingly similar in 1999, throwing himself into that famous star jump to stop Ivan Zamorano in the Champions League quarterfinal against Inter Milan. It was one of those images that sticks with a young goalkeeper forever. Nyland had wanted his own version of it ever since. This was the moment where that old picture in his head finally became real. Schmeichel stood out to Nyland for more than just one iconic save. There were parts of his story that felt familiar. Like Nyland, he had a background in handball, and that mattered. The famous star jump may have looked unusual on a football pitch, but the idea behind it came straight from handball, where goalkeepers are taught to spread themselves and cover space in the most dramatic way possible. What looked like improvisation to everyone else was actually built on technique, timing, and instinct. There was something else in Schmeichel's rise that hit home too. He came from a country that was not usually treated like a football giant, yet he still forced his way into the very top level of the game and became one of the best goalkeepers in the world. That kind of path had real meaning for someone like Nyland, who was also trying to prove that where you come from does not have to decide how far you can go. But more than the handball connection, and more than the story of a player from a so-called smaller nation breaking through, Schmeichel had something Nyland admired most. He never accepted the idea that goalkeepers were supposed to stay in the background. He made the position loud, visible, and impossible to ignore.
Brazil into that pot. They've been negative in the way they've approached the game. They tried to, I think, just before we came on air, Jan was saying it, they tried to suck Norway in and almost did 2 or 3 times where Norway gave the ball away in the first half needlessly and almost get punished. That was their game plan. But they were negative and they haven't been successful, and they go in that pot of a team that's uninspiring at a World Cup and they're on a flight home.
Yeah. Football loves to talk about teamwork and equality, but the game has always had its own pecking order. Some players are pushed to the center of every story, while others do the hard work in the shadows. Goalkeepers know that better than anyone. They can keep a team alive for 90 minutes, pull off save after save, and still end up as a footnote once the headlines are written. The spotlight almost always drifts toward the scorers, the dribblers, the players with the highlight clips that are easiest to replay. That is what makes the position so strange. A striker can miss 3 big chances, score once, and still walk away as the hero. A goalkeeper can rescue his team over and over, yet his best work often survives only in the memory of the people who watched it happen. Football can be brutally selective like that. It rewards the final touch, the clean finish, the player at the end of the move. Everything that comes before it can be forgotten in a rush. So when the record books look back on Norway's win over Brazil, Erling Haaland's brace will be the first thing they hold on to. His goals will sit there in plain sight, fixed in the numbers, easy to find years from now. That is how football preserves its stars. Nyland's night is different. His performance lives in moments rather than statistics, in the images of him throwing himself across goal, stretching every part of his frame, and refusing to let Brazil take control. Haaland will be frozen in history. Nyland, despite being just as decisive, will rely on memory. But goalkeepers like Nyland and Schmeichel have never played the role quietly. Their style is not built around disappearing into the background or behaving with polite restraint. It is built around being seen, being felt, and making every big moment look even bigger. That is part of what makes them so hard to ignore. They do not just stop shots. They turn pressure into theatre and make sure everyone in the stadium knows exactly who is standing in the way.
Being positive, enjoying being at the World Cup, are winning. Look at Brazil, adios. Look at Germany, auf Wiedersehen, because they didn't want to do it. Norway today had 3 times as many passes as Brazil. They were much more positive. They had a 67% of the ball. So this is from Norway, and Ståle Solbakken, I have to give him a compliment too. Last time we lost 5-1 to Austria away. There were some idiots in Norway who said Ståle should leave his post.
Nyland showed that side of himself late against Brazil. He walked up to a Brazilian star who was already on edge, emotions clearly close to spilling over, and started talking before a stoppage time penalty that changed nothing about the result. Tactically, it did not really matter. Norway were already in control of the outcome. But that was not the point. The point was presence. The point was to get inside the moment, to make the penalty feel heavier, and to pull the camera toward him one more time. Nyland was not interested in being a background character in somebody else's story. He wanted the scene to revolve around him. That instinct had been there long before he became Norway's goalkeeper. As a kid, Nyland was the type to launch himself off diving boards that looked too high for him without a second thought. His parents would be left panicking on the side while he brushed it off with, "Relax, I've got this." He was the same with his bike, getting rid of the training wheels not because he was fully ready, but because his friend had already done it. At 12, he broke bones skiing in the Sunnmørstafetten relay. The injury was serious enough to put him in a cast, but even that barely slowed him down. As soon as it came off, his reaction was not caution or doubt. It was simple. I'm going straight to the hills. That fearlessness was not limited to one sport. Nyland seemed to be good at almost everything he touched, and for a while, his future could have gone in several different directions. By 13, he had already earned a place in the national skiing setup, a serious sign of how highly he was rated on the slopes. At the same time, he was making a name for himself as a goalkeeper for Herd, showing the kind of sharpness and nerve that marked him out early. Golf was another lane where he was moving fast, and in handball, he was not just taking part, he was a key figure for his team. For a young athlete from a small town, it was an unusually stacked resume. Nyland was not just sporty. He looked like someone who could have built a real career in almost any discipline he chose. At one point, Nyland was in such demand that football and handball teams were literally fighting over his schedule. When fixtures clashed, neither side wanted to give him up. So he came up with the kind of solution that already felt very on brand for him. He played the handball match in Trondheim, jumped on a flight to Sunnmøre, and then went straight into a football game. For most young athletes, that would sound ridiculous. For Nyland, it was just another day of trying to do everything at once. But for all the talent, momentum, and noise around his name, the big breakthrough did not arrive in a straight line. After Norway's run to the semi-finals at the 2013 Under-21 Euros, major clubs started circling. Manchester United and Arsenal both showed interest, enough to make people wonder if his career was about to take off in a serious way. But interest never turned into a formal move. Everton did make an offer, only for it to come in too low. Instead of landing at one of Europe's glamour clubs, Nyland ended up at Ingolstadt in Germany. Even there, the timing refused to be kind. Just as he finally got his chance to become the first-choice goalkeeper, the club went down. There was another opening when he joined Dean Smith's Aston Villa. It was the Championship, not the Premier League, but it still felt like a proper foothold in English football. And more importantly, he was playing regularly. At last, there was some rhythm to his career, some sense that he had found a place to settle. Then, the ACL injury hit and wiped out 183 days. Another stop, another reset, another stretch of watching instead of playing. The pattern kept following him. After years of living like a football journeyman, moving, adapting, waiting for the next real chance, Nyland thought he had finally found some stability in Sevilla. It looked like the sort of club where he could put down roots and stop drifting. Instead, he lost the no one shirt there as well, and with it went another version of the future he had been trying to build. That is what makes his career line so strange when you step back and look at it. In 15 professional seasons, Nyland has played only 396 club matches. 7 of those seasons were spent as the backup, the stand-in, the goalkeeper waiting for his turn while someone else held the spotlight. For long stretches of his career, he was not the main character at all. He was stuck in the shadows, watching, waiting, and trying not to disappear. Nyland is not living in the background anymore. Whatever uncertainty still hangs over his club future, and whatever happens once the World Cup is over, this was the night he made sure nobody could look away. He may still be without a club for now, but at East Rutherford, he dragged the spotlight onto himself and kept it there. Not with hype, not with reputation, but with performance. Every save, every reaction, every little piece of theatre pushed him closer to the center of the story until there was no real argument left about who had shaped the game. After the match, Nyland put that journey into his own words. "Standing here today and getting paid for all the crap you've been in, it's really nice," he told reporters. It was a blunt line, but it fit. His career has not followed the neat path people imagined when he first emerged. There were the clubs that hesitated, the moves that did not quite lift off, the injuries that stalled him, the seasons spent backing up someone else, and the repeated feeling that he was always one step away from the version of his career that was supposed to happen. This performance did not erase all of that, but it gave those years a kind of payoff. It turned the frustration into context. It made the struggle part of the story, rather than the end of it. Ronnie Osnes, Nyland's former goalkeeping coach at Hod, once got a question that sounds simple until you actually try to answer it. What made Nyland different? The obvious qualities came first. Mentality, willpower, athleticism, technique. All true, all important, all easy enough to spot. Then came the follow-up. Anything else? Aura, Osnes said. That was the word that fit better than any of the others, and against Brazil, it made complete sense. Nyland was not just sharp or brave or technically excellent. He had presence, he had edge. He had the kind of force that changes the feel of a match and pulls attention toward him, whether the cameras intend to follow him or not. Against Brazil, Nyland was exactly what his old coach saw in him years ago. He was aura made visible. And just like that, the goalkeeper, who spent so much of his career waiting on the edge of the frame, ended up owning one of the biggest nights of the tournament. Nyland did not just help Norway beat Brazil, he turned the match into a reminder that football stories are not always written by the players who score the goals. Sometimes, they belong to the guy throwing himself across the line, refusing to fold, refusing to be ignored, and forcing the world to finally pay attention. For years, Nyland had been the nearly man, the backup, the one with the talent but not always the timing, the one whose path kept twisting just when it looked like things were about to settle. But against Brazil, none of that mattered. Not the missed chances in his career, not the clubs that passed, not the injuries, not the seasons spent watching from the side. For one night, all of it led here, to the penalty save, to the star jump moment, to the mind games, to the kind of performance that makes people stop, rewind, and ask themselves how one goalkeeper managed to turn a World Cup match into his own personal statement. That is what made this performance hit so hard. It was not just about the saves themselves, even though they were outrageous. It was about what they represented. A player who had spent years in and out of the spotlight finally stepped into it on his own terms. A goalkeeper who grew up inspired by Peter Schmeichel ended up producing a moment that felt worthy of that same mythology. And a man who had spent so much time in the shadows walked off the pitch as the figure nobody could stop talking about. Maybe that is the best way to sum up Nyland's night against Brazil. It was not just a big performance, it felt like a release. Like every frustrating detour, every setback, every period of waiting had been bottled up and then poured into 90 minutes of chaos, defiance, and brilliance. On a stage built for stars, Nyland made sure the goalkeeper was the star. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Matchio for more football stories, deep dives, and dramatic match breakdowns like this one. We've got plenty more coming, so stay locked in. Peace.